Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today I am here to bring you my first impressions about the Battlefield 2042 reveal that we got yesterday on Wednesday the 9th of June, and I am very excited about this game. I've said for a long time, if you follow me on Twitter, I've said a few times on there that this game has been one of my most heavily anticipated games of the year. You know, I'm a big fan of the previous Battlefield entries, even though I really wasn't a fan when they first came out, but I'll kind of get into some of my experience there. But yeah, overall, this game was really hyped for me, and I think this trailer absolutely delivered and the other information that we learned. So I just want to give some of my impressions and thoughts on it and hear what you guys have to think as well. So let's dive right in. Like I just mentioned, I just wanted to quickly touch on my Battlefield background for anyone who's going to potentially listen to this who has more experience than me. I never was into a modern Battlefield game when it came out, and by that I mean by the time I got into Battlefield 4, which was the first one I played, my friend recommended it to me. It had already been out for good 2 or more years, probably 3 or 4 actually. And so I really only got into it just before Battlefield 1 came out, and I played that for a little bit, but to be honest, historical shooters never quite capture me as much as modern ones do, or in this case, modern and slightly futuristic. And so I played Battlefield 1 for a bit. I liked it. You know, I think they did a great job capturing the spectacle and the historical somewhat accuracy of that, I suppose. So that was fun, but nothing, you know, in that realm is ever going to entice me as much as a modern shooter, and that is what this is delivering. 2042, I really like how they are going just a little bit in the future. I think that gives them a lot of creative freedom, and as you can see from the trailer, you know, they're going all out with the type of warfare and tactics and everything, and I think it's really awesome. So the trailer, huge thumbs up for me. I think it captured the essence of what they really wanted to convey without, you know, revealing a bunch of details that they might want to save for later. Gave us an idea of the scope of the game. I would say story, but there's not going to be a campaign, which we will get to later. But overall, just the background of what's going on in the game, and I think it all looks really great. The best part has to be that dogfight where they, I know there's a term for it in the community. If you've seen that clip, what I'm referring to is when they were doing the dogfight in the air with the jets, and the guy ejects, shoots the other one with an RPG, and gets back in. That's actually something that happened in Battlefield 3, I want to say, and it's a very infamous clip online. And I know there's a term for it that people use, but I can't think of it off the top of my head because, like I said, I've never been fully into Battlefield when a release happened that I've stuck around for. So that was the best part, in my opinion. That was really cool to see, and that was awesome that they mentioned that. And yeah, so the trailer was great. But there was also, beyond just the trailer, we got some additional information from various creators and outlets who got to attend a press event a few days ago. And so all over online, there's a bunch of information you can find. And so I just wanted to give some of my thoughts on that information that was put out there. The first one being that there's a new system kind of for your character in this game called the Specialist system. Now, in previous Battlefield games, as best I can describe it as someone who is, you know, I wouldn't say I'm a novice, but I'm not super, I'm not a huge expert on all the things they've done in previous games. Basically, you would have your character, you would choose one of the 4 classes, either Assault, Support, Recon, and Engineer, something like that. You would choose your character, and then you would choose a specific set of weapons that you could do there. Not every class had access to all the weapons, and basically you got to mod your character out of one of those 4 classes. But now, each of the characters is going to have their kind of... If you play Warzone, it's kind of like if you chose an operator, and then that operator had a specific set of abilities tied to them. That's kind of what this is. You choose a specialist that has a unique ability and a few specific traits to them, and then from there you can build your class around that specialist. I really like the idea of this. I always found Battlefield's customization to be a bit overbearing at times, where, you know, you had so much you could tune and change in the middle of a match that it almost felt a little overwhelming, and I didn't really know what to do in all these different scenarios. So I think this streamlines it a bit, and it should be a lot more fun to get these cool abilities. Like, one of the specialists has a grappling hook, one has a little pistol that can heal and revive allies, one has a turret, one has a little spy drone that looks really cool that can go around the map. So I think there's a really cool system, and I think it should streamline that customization a bit to be more accessible to the wider audience. So I think that looked really great. Like I mentioned previously, before you could not use all types of weapons on all classes, meaning a recon person usually only had access to longer range weapons and snipers, and the assaults pretty much only had ARs. Well, now you can kind of mix and match and do any weapon with any specialist, and I think that's going to be a great addition, and I think, honestly, that maybe that's something that long-term Battlefield players will not be a fan of, but as someone who just likes to go in and play and have fun in these types of games, having the ability to use any weapon with any class sounds really fun to me, so I'm glad that that's happening. They're doing a big change to their vehicle system, whereas previously only when you were spawning in could you choose to go back to your base and choose a specific vehicle to spawn into, which then other players could join you if they chose and if there were seats. You can now call in vehicles anywhere on the map with a tablet that you can pull out. So if you want a tank in the middle of a gunfight, if you're pinned down, I'm assuming there's some sort of point system tied to it. You know, if you have a certain amount of points that you've saved up in the game, then you can spend those, and I assume bigger vehicles or different ones will cost more or less, but you can call that in and drop it anywhere on the map that you want. So if you're being pinned down and pushed by a bunch of people right in front of you, you could theoretically call a tank in and have it drop right on top of them. Obviously, there would be a lot of indicators for them to move out of the way, but you can see the potential for what this could unlock during combat, and it sounds really fun. I think it's a better system than having to, if you want to spawn into a vehicle, you'd have to kill yourself and then, you know, spawn into a vehicle that way. I think this will provide a lot more dynamicism in combat, and it should just unlock a lot more options and fun. So I'm excited for that one too. I think that's another good change. I think a lot of the stuff they're changing about kind of the core, how these games have worked in the past, I think it's going to be pretty cool. Now, one of the more controversial changes that I kind of agree with doesn't sound as enticing is that they have said that there is a new system for on-the-go modding, which is basically, say you have an assault rifle that you've built for a little more longer range, you have a little bit of a scope on it, maybe some, heavier ammunition, you have a certain recoil grip on the front. Basically, they're saying in real time during the match, if you want to push into a building and you don't need that longer range anymore, you can pull up this little menu and swap all your mods on the fly. You know, just in the middle of combat, no penalties, no restrictions, no nothing. And I think while it's a cool functionality, and I'm sure it will be convenient to have during matches, I do think that takes away a little bit from the strategy of, planning out your loadout before you go into a fight. And then, if you pick up someone else's weapon, then you can just switch all the mods if you don't like how they have it set up. So like I said, it's going to be convenient. It's probably going to be nice in certain scenarios, but I do think it detracts a bit from the strategy overall of heading into a gunfight, heading into a match, depending on the map. So yeah, I'm a little more meh on that one, but I don't think it'll really change that much in the grand scheme of things. Two other important bits of information, and I will just put the tweets on screen from where I saw them, but of course this has been reported by numerous people across the internet. Jeff Keighley, who I follow on Twitter, he's a great guy to follow if you want to hear about a lot of games. He hosts the annual Game Awards, and he's doing Summer Game Fest. He first talked about right after this dropped that on PC and next-gen consoles, this game is going to support 128 player lobbies, which is insane. If you think that previous Battlefields have been hectic, this is going to be even more, with huge maps. I think I heard numbers thrown around like 4 times larger than some of the ones you'll find on Battlefield 5, which is the most recent Battlefield. So that's huge. But then on last-gen consoles, they're not just pulling this game from that market, which I think is good for those people who still have those consoles, but it will be restricted to 64-player lobbies on smaller versions of the same maps. So, in my opinion, as someone who owns an Xbox Series X, that's great. I really want them to take full advantage of this hardware, which I think this is what they're doing here. It is bad for the people who have last-gen consoles who want next-gen but just can't get them because of the current availability issues. That's certainly an issue and an unfortunate circumstance. But hopefully in the next few months before this comes out, the people who want to get those can get them so that this isn't as much of an issue. But as a next-gen owner, this is something that's, I think it's great. And I wish that more games would start taking more advantage of it. I understand it's still new technology, but it's exciting to see. And one other thing he mentioned that I briefly mentioned earlier was that this game is going to have no campaign. They're focusing solely on the multiplayer experience, and I am all for it. A lot of people are upset about this online. I understand that some people enjoy Battlefield or enjoy shooters in general for their campaigns and maybe only play Battlefield for the campaign. That sounds odd to say. But I think in general, the majority of people who play these games are playing it for the multiplayer. And so to see them, and I certainly do that myself, so seeing them fully commit to that and putting all their development resources and power on making multiplayer as best as it can be, that's really exciting for me to hear. Again, a lot of people are probably going to disagree with me on that, but as someone who rarely even cares to dabble in these types of games as campaigns, this is exciting for me, and I bet it's exciting for a lot of other people too. The last important note is that this game will now feature a live service model akin to something like Warzone or Modern Warfare or Black Ops Cold War. And so what that means is that they're going to do a very similar thing to the current structure of those games I just mentioned, where we have 4 seasons per year. and each of those seasons has their own battle pass that is free unless you want to pay and get the extra tiers, and then that's, just cosmetic stuff. And I think that sounds great. I think that's a great way to support a game like this. I'm all for that type of model where there's not paid DLC, but it's more optional and cosmetic based. There is going to be I believe they said one new specialist per season, which sounds great. One specialist, a few new guns. That's a great way to keep things rotating throughout the year. So I think that all sounds great. And I thought that was important to mention because I bet a lot of people will care to hear about what the post-launch strategy is. It's going to be live service, going to be, optional pay. And in my opinion, that's better for everyone. Maybe some disagree. That's fine. But I think this doesn't split up the player base. And, it's all cosmetic based and optional if you want to pay. So I think that sounds like a great system. All right, guys. And I think that's going to do it for my coverage and first impressions of the Battlefield 2042 reveal. Thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video and be sure to subscribe with notifications on to be updated every time I upload. Certainly let me know your thoughts about all of this down in the comments below. Are you excited for Battlefield 2042? Do you like the setting change from the previous 2 entries? What do you think about some of the changes they're making to the core experience? I'm very curious about what all of your thoughts are on those topics. Overall, I'm just really excited to be able to be a part of the Battlefield community at a game launch like this. Like I said, I came around to the Battlefield franchise after 4 came out, and so I wasn't around for that, and I hung around briefly for 1, but historicals don't catch me like these ones do. And so I'm excited to be around at launch, all that hype, all those players flooding into the massive lobbies that they're going to house. I think it's going to be really great. The gameplay reveal for this game is this coming Sunday at E3 at Xbox's event on the 13th. I believe that's around 12 or 1 o'clock Pacific time. So if you want to catch the gameplay for this game, then be sure to tune into that, and then I'm sure it'll be everywhere soon after that. So we don't have to wait long to see what the gameplay for this looks like, and I'm certainly anticipating that very much. But until then, thanks again, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful day, and until the next one, guys, RogueGold out.